Well, now it's just time to focus on the PLL, at least. It's been a long, arduous season for college lacrosse, and, the NLL as well. I do want to touch on that a little bit, but, first things first, dominant performance from the Princeton Tigers today. Let me tell you, they just outmanned Notre Dame at every possible step. They were down 3-0, scored 11 straight, used their zone defense and their powerful offense. They lost in the quarterfinals last year, were able to get it together. They lost to Penn State, early in the season, and they were able to get it together. And they won this national championship. Just back-breaking defense, ground balls. There was a moment where it was a 3-on-1, and yet they were able to come away with that ground ball. It's things like that where the resiliency and the talent that Princeton had was able to stop Notre Dame from getting their third in 4 years, because that would have been crazy if Notre Dame was gotten their third in 4 years. Middlebury is one, another one to go to D2 women, but D1 women, Northwestern was able to beat North Carolina. There was controversial calls, in that game that kind of made the difference. Couple of no goals, which again, women's lacrosse has been hard for me to watch, because of how things are with, basically the foul shot, basically that one penalty, it's just been crazy, to see some of these rules. I still don't like them. I've never liked them. I think, if the women's game can change to be more like the men's, then we'd be fine. Because I don't need to see a foul shot in women's college lacrosse. I really don't need to see that. PLL and WLL have just started, so there's really nothing for me to talk about there. Again, a lot of guys, now are going to be reporting and ready to go, for the next couple weeks, because, the NLL's done, college is done, there's going to be a bunch of guys that are also going to be in Canada as well. But, the less I talk about whatever in the world's going on in the Canadian scene, the better, because I don't know what's going on, to be quite frank with you. But this has been one of the weirdest seasons of college lacrosse in a long, long time. A lot of bracket talk, oh, well, we need to expand the bracket, which, I'm cool with expanding the bracket to 24. I'm cool with that. But I just think, we need another AQ first. A lot of people still whining about AQs, and it's like, in other sports they do this too, where they whine about AQs. It's not just college lacrosse where they whine about AQs. Lars Tiffany basically just getting, a 3-sentence, goodbye from Virginia. Now the head coaching search for Virginia is going to be insane, because we don't know who's going to be, the head man. UMBC, basically, their AD's we're going to get rid of both the women's and the men's lacrosse coaches. We're going to get rid of both of them, and basically not say anything on social media about it. And who is going to go to UMBC? Again, this is a thing that can, there could be rapid repercussions from nonsense like this. There could be rapid repercussions from something like this. The NIL stuff is basically killing programs in non-revenue sports, and lacrosse could be one of those ones that are next. You saw Hartford already drop down to D3, a year or so ago. If something crazy happens to where we're losing teams, in the college landscape, that's not a good idea. That's not a good thing. It's happening in college hockey. It's happening. It's not something that can just be, phased away. A lot of people didn't like Duke getting into this tournament, and that's where I was going with the bracket stuff earlier. It's like, what can you do? The ACC needs a 6, team. Northwestern can't do it. They're too busy packing their own stadium for, their championship win, which they won, 9 titles in the last however many years. It's been crazy for Northwestern. It's been crazy. But Princeton overcomes the drought. Their 25-year drought is now over. They win 16-9 against Notre Dame. you know. Another feel-good story in Syracuse and Joey Spallina, a very, very talented Syracuse group, but they just could not get it done when it mattered most in the semifinals against Notre Dame. They just could not get it done when it matters most. And it really sucks, but now Spallina can go and do some damage in the PLL and everything like that, you know. NLL real quick, Nick Rose finally gets his championship. Toronto finally gets a championship after so many years of being bounced by the Bandits, and everything like that. And it was an all-Canadian final with them in Halifax. The controversy in the NLL right now, there are a couple of things, that happened over the course of the playoffs that, kind of just was like, oh, this is bad. This is really, really bad, and we're not in a good position. Ottawa's having problems to where people are saying, hey, this team might fold. And we already have Philadelphia basically said that they're done unless they can find somebody. For a league touting themselves as the next major league, another contraction, like this has been like a 5-year span of contractions and relocations at this point. Like, Ottawa just got here. If we have Jeff T in a dispersal draft, that is insane. That is insane to me. To where we could get to that point. And I don't think we need to get to that point. The other thing was Georgia, basically not having the arena availability to host, one of their semifinal games, which is like, we got to do better with that. I hate best of threes. I don't think, a lot of people are like, oh, well, best of 7, best of 5. I am a guy that likes to go backwards with things sometimes, and I think lacrosse is just better as a one game, winner take all type thing. Like, if the first round is just one game winner take all, then everything else needs to be one game winner take all to make the season more fluid, and everything like that. And it's just like, I don't understand where the NL is coming from. There's been a lot of backwards moves over the past, couple of years to where I just don't see it. They're being buried on ESPNU. The TSN stuff is cool and all that, but like, when people are, people aren't talking about the NL like that during the off season. Like, even though the PLL, is like whatever, it's really a whatever league at this point right now because it's not gaining the momentum I think it should be getting. Because hint, I will be forever mad at TV schedules and stuff like where the PLL can take advantage. I feel like if you have ESPN saying we're gonna put on an X Games League stuff in like July when there's perfectly good PLL action right there, it's whatever. I don't know. The WLL has been it's been fine, but it's like it's one game every other week or so, and it's like that's not gonna build momentum the way it should. I just don't see the whole we're gonna move teams into markets and keep them in markets thing, holding fresh fruit, because we had that and that got taken away. We had that and it got taken away. So there's nothing here that can suggest that, oh well, I don't know. We're doing all this and we're having all this stuff, and like Paul Rappel's saying all this stuff and he means well. He means very, very well. But it's like I don't see it right now. Lacrosse is not in a healthy state. This is probably one of the worst seasons I think I've seen in a long, long time. And I've seen some bad seasons. We've seen some bad seasons of college lacrosse. We've seen some bad seasons of the NLL. This is probably one of the worst first parts of the lacrosse season in a long, long time. And now the PLL has to pick up the slack to make sure that things kind of end a little bit better, because Princeton just beat the brakes off of Notre Dame. It was not even the score really doesn't, indicate what this game was. And it was basically done by halftime. Basically done with that 11 straight scores that Princeton had. It was basically done by halftime. So all in all, I think next year, I don't know where the talent is going to come from for next year, but something has to give next year. And it has to be good, because all these controversies this year, between Booker Corrigan, basically saying whatever he wants to say and being like, oh, well, I did the replay and stuff like that, to, again, UMBC being what it is, lately, to the whole Lars Tiffany situation, and it's like all these controversies lately have messed things up. The tournament even, was like, well, I don't know. Just a lot of muck, really, in this tournament. There was a lot of muck this year where I didn't think anybody but Princeton and Notre Dame were going to come out on top, really, But in any case, that's it for me as far as college lacrosse is concerned, with my thoughts on the NLL situations, The NLL contracts again, I'm just going to be like, what, it's whatever at this point. College lacrosse is not in a healthy state either, It's definitely not in a healthy state, but, a dominant congrats to Princeton for winning the national championship and ending the 2026 college lacrosse season on at least somewhat of a decent note. Not a great note, but a decent one.